Welcome to Macrocode, and today we are going to learn about authentication in ASP.NET Core. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and watching our previous videos. So today we are going to cover a very important topic which has been very confusing for most of ASP.NET Core developers. So today we are going to understand what is claim-based authentication. So there are some confusing terms when it comes to claims-based authentication. One is the claims itself. Then we have claims identity and claims principle. So today we are going to understand what is also the difference between authentication and authorization when it comes to ASP.NET Core. So we are going to learn how ASP.NET Core handles the authentication using the authentication handlers, authentication scheme, and authentication middlewares. So today we are going to explain these in a very good manner. Then we'll be able to see a practical example on how this works in ASP.NET Core. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and watching our previous videos. So to begin, today we are going to learn mostly about claims-based authorization, which is sometimes called claim-based access control. So if you are new to our channel, consider subscribing and let's get started. So today we are going to understand these two terms, which is very important in ASP.NET Core and even in other applications. So we are going to understand what is authorization and authentication when it comes to ASP.NET Core. So the first thing that you are going to understand is authentication. So authentication is the process of verifying the identity of an individual. It is about determining who the user is. So if we just give an example, if you're working in a company, you're actually employed there, you are one of the employees. So what usually happens, you are given a company ID card. So an employee needs to present that card at the entrance when entering the workplace. So the ID uniquely identifies the employee, without which it can be denied to actually access the company premises. So this scenario, in real life scenario, always also applies to our applications, that is the web applications development approaches. So we need to create the users in the system, and we need to assign a unique ID like the username or email address and a secret password for that user. So the user must actually enter the username or password at the login screen so that we are able to identify the user. So only if it presents the valid credentials, then the user is authenticated and allowed to enter. So these two are scenarios whereby you are given a company ID and you need to present the company ID at the gate so that you're able to access the company premises, is also another way of doing authentication. So the same way to web applications, where we usually allow users to key in their username and password, then we actually authenticate them and allow them to access the system. So that is actually the process of verifying the identity of an individual so that you are able to know them. So there are different ways in web applications on how we usually handle authentication. Some of the ways are actually, we have the cookie-based authentication, the token-based authentication, and there are some others like the API token and the open ID. So these scenarios applies. You can look at this as having employed in a company and you have an employee's card, and you always need to present this card when entering the company premises. For those who are using APIs, some of the APIs requires you to provide them with the third part, like the API tokens, so that you're able to access or get some of the resources that you are requesting. So that is actually the process of verifying your identity. Other ways are cookies based authentication, and others are now the email and password that we usually provide users with, uh, that we usually allow users to actually key in correct email and password so that they are able to access the system. So that is authentication. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing, and even you can comment down below in case you have any suggestion. So when it comes to authorization, so what is authorization? So authorization determines what the user is allowed to do. So, for example, the scenario that we had just given of the employee. So the employee does not have access to everything inside the workplace, because as the employee has just provided the ID card, and we have actually acknowledged that this employee is working in this company, and we have allowed them the access to actually enter into the company premises. But remember, the employee does not have access to everything inside the workplace. So he can enter only those departments for which he is actually authorized. For example, an employee may be working in finance, cannot be authorized to access a server room. And an employee working in IT department cannot be authorized to access maybe a CEO's office. So some of the scenario as well is like an employee working in a in IT department cannot be allowed to access finance office. So that is some of the authorization. So authorization determines what the user is allowed to do. So for the examples that you have just given is the access to server room, which sometimes is only allowed to IT department guys or the senior IT officers. Then we have the in example of a system, assuming you have logged into a system, you have provided your username and password and you have accessed the system, then some of the users may not be allowed to access payroll module. Maybe this module is only accessed by the HR team or the person who is actually running the payroll module. So this is actually determining what the user can actually see. So you can be working in a certain company, but you don't have rights to access a certain department like the finance department, or even in a system scenario, you may be logged into the system, but you don't have access to system administration module. So this is the same way. So when a user is logged in, he is actually authenticated, but he may not have the authority to browse some of the modules. For example, like the access to system administration module or access to payroll module. So these modules or even the departments can only be accessed with admin rights. So these admin rights, we are now coming to understand what are now claims. So these are now the rights that you need to actually have for you to access the system admin, or for you to access the payroll module or some of the departments in your organization. So to proceed, we need to understand what are claims so that you're able to see what is claims-based authorization or claims-based access control. So for ASP.NET Core, you must actually understand these three key terms: claim, claim identity, and claims principal. So we have these three terms: claims, claims identity, and claims principal. So in ASP.NET Core, ASP.NET uses claims-based authentication. So when we talk about this claims-based authentication, then we must understand what is claim identity, what is a claim, what is a user when you come to ASP.NET Core applications. And also we must understand what is claims principle. So these four terms are very important when it comes to a claims-based authentication or claims-based access control. So the first thing that we need to understand is what is a claim. So some of you guys may be wondering, what is a claim? So we have been talking about claims-based authorization. So a claim is a piece of information about the user. And most of other people usually define it as a name-value pair that represents what the subject is or what the subject can do. It is actually a piece of information about the user and not what the user can do or what the user cannot do. So remember, this is actually a piece of information. It doesn't represent what the user can do or what the user cannot do. So claims are user data. and they are issued by trusted source. So they are completely different from roles. So I need you to understand that, guys. So the claims are completely different from roles. So a claim can be anything. For example, a name, email address, phone number, age, gender. So that is what we usually call claims. So a claims can be an email address. So, and you can see from our definition, it is actually a name value pair. So you give the name and the value. You can see that my claim is email and the value is test@gmail.com. My value is username and the name is username and the value is admin. The age, the name is age and the value is 20. Gender is the name and the value is male. So these ones are now what we are calling claims. And as you can see, it is actually a piece of information about the user. So all these are actually claims. So some of you may be wondering, uh, what about like the first name of a person? So first name is actually an information about a user. So first name is also a claim. So if you are having like, so the value, the name value pair will be first name, then you give it the value, which can be John. Then gender, you can say gender, then the value will be male. So we have phone number, then the value will be the phone number of the user. Then we have the username, which will be like, for our example, username, then admin. Then we have age, and the value will be 20. Then email address, and the value will be test@gmail.com. Then we have country. So our claim will be country. The value will be, you give the country where you are. Then height can be a claim. Height will be the name, and the value will be like maybe 7. Then something to note now. As you have just seen, we have said that claims are completely different from roles. But there is something interesting. In ASP.NET Core, a role is just a claim with type role. So a role is a claim with a type role. So claims are policy based. Since a role is also a claim of type role, we can also use a role with the new policy syntax. So we'll be able to see this when we explain more, but I don't want you guys to get confused about roles for now. I'm just mentioning that a role is just a claim with type role. That means a role is actually a claim. So as you can see in our list, you are now providing a role as a type of claim. So you will provide the role as the name and you give the value as the role of that user. So role will be the name of the claim and the value of the role will be now the role for, like, the admin will be the value of that role. So that is now a claim. So if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing as we proceed. So the next term that we need to understand is what we are saying a claims identity. So we have been able to define a claim as a piece of information about the user. So what is a claim identity? So a claim identity is a collection of claims. So guys, I need you to understand that a claim identity is a collection of claims. And as we have just said, a claim is a piece of information about the user. So you can think of a claim identity as a collection of information about the user. So when we say claim identity, some of you may be wondering, what is this collection of claims? So think of a claim identity as a national ID card. So a national ID card, for those whose countries they usually have like an ID, a national ID card, you'll find that national ID card will have something like first name, last name, middle name, date of birth. Those first name, last name, date of birth is actually claims. So the national ID card holding a collection of claims is what we are calling claim identity. So this national ID card is now a type of claims identity because it has a collection of claims. That is the first name, last name, middle name, age of date of birth, and some of the maybe the ID number. So another thing could be the passport. So passport is an example of claims identity. So as you think of a passport, it has your first name, last name, and even middle name. And it can also have the date of birth, your email address. So those email address, date of birth, first name, last name, those are claims. But passport has a collection of these claims. So our passport will be claims identity. So another thing could be the driving license. Your driving license could be having first name, last name, date of birth. These information are actually claims. So a collection of this information is being handled by the driving license. So the driving license is a claims identity. So all these types of claims identity, at the bottom there, another thing is the credit card. Your credit card has information about you. It has a piece of information about you. That is the first name, last name. It has your credit card number. It has your some of the account number. So those information is actually a collection of claims. So all these are now examples of claims identity. And all these are actually has the same information about a user. Another claim identity type is the Google account, your Google account. Somebody can get your email address, your first name, and your last name. So those information that your Google account has are claims. So this Google account is now a claims identity, meaning it is a collection of claims. So these are some of the examples of claims identity. So all these has some information about you. So all these are now what we are calling claims identities. So all this information has the first name, it has the middle name, it has the last name, some has the email address, some has the date of birth. So all these first name, middle name, last name, email address, date of birth are all claims. So you can see the credit card, driving license, national ID card, passport, Google account are claims identities. These claims identities, each of them is a collection of claims. So you can see like the driving license, it can have the first name, middle name, and the last name. The national ID card, it can have the first name, middle name, last name. Your passport can have the first name, middle name, last name, date of birth. Your Google account can have the first name, middle name, last name, and the email address. So those are claims. So those are now a collection of claims. So guys, I think you have now understood what are claims identity. So the next thing that you need to understand is the claims principle. So what is the claims principle or identity when it comes to ASP.NET Core? Some of you might have come across the terms claims principle, or identity in ASP.NET Core. So when you talk of a claim principle contains a collection of claims identity. So claim principle contains a collection of claims identity. We have actually seen what are claims identity. So we said first name is actually a type of claim. We have also seen the middle name is actually a claim. We have also seen last name can be a claim, email address can be a claim, and date of birth can be a claim. And we have seen that all these are claims. We have also seen claims identity, and we have said claims identity is a collection of claims. So meaning it has the first name, middle name, last name, email address, and date of birth. So all these claims at the bottom makes the claims identity. And we have also seen some of the examples of claims identity, like the driving license, which it has some of the claims. We have also seen the national ID card, which it has some of the claims. We have also seen the passport, which it has some of the claims. So all these we have said are claims identities. So what a claim principle now means is a collection of claims identity. So all the driving license, national ID card, and the passport, when you combine these lists, it makes a claims principle. So it now makes a claims principle. And what is this claims principle? That is the user. So a user contains a collection of claims identity, meaning me and you can be having the driving license, me and you can be having the passport, me and you can be having the national ID card. So a user is now who we refer to as claim principal. So a user is the claim principal. So a user can have more than one claims identity. For example, you can have both the driving license and the passport. So a driving license is a claims identity with claims like first name, last name, date of birth, and the DL number. A passport is another claims identity, which it has claims like first name, last name, address, and the passport. So both identifies the same user. That means the claims principle. So the passport, your driving license, it has information about you. That means those your passport, driving license being the claim identities can be used to identify the same person who is the claims principal. So the claim principal is actually the user. So this is the explanation, guys, about claims principle. So all this information now this is how it looks like. So we have all the claims. A claims is actually a piece of information about the user. Then these claims, a collection of these claims makes claims identity, where we have given the examples as the driving license, national ID card, and the passport. All this information, the driving license, passport, and the national ID card identifies a specific person who is you and me. That means your name, your first name, and the middle name and the last name in your passport will be the same person, or the same information being uh, will be the same information in your driving license, and it will be the same information in your national ID card. So all this information can be used to identify a user with a claim principle. So that is it, guys. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So the next thing is we need to see how claim-based authorization works in ASP.NET Core. So claims-based authorization works by checking if the user has a claim to access a URL. So when you use claims-based authorization, what you usually check now is if the user has the claim. And remember what we have said about the claim. It is about the first name, the gender, the middle name, the last name. So that is what you use to check. So in ASP.NET Core, we create policies to implement claim-based authorization. This means claims are policy-based. So we'll be able to see this practically, but what I need you to understand is that claims are policy-based. So the policy determines what claims that a user must process to satisfy the policy. So the policies are actually like functions or define rules. So we'll be able to also differentiate policies in our next video. So guys, subscribe so that you get this notification. So the policy defines what claims the user must process to satisfy the policy. So only those users who carry the claims that we want, or only those users who carry claims which satisfies the policy is allowed to access the resource. So all the others who doesn't satisfy the policy are now redirected to access denied page in applications. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and like our video, share. So in our next video, we are going to now create a practical example using the we are going now to create a practical example using the claims-based authorization. So see you in our next video. Bye.